Welcome, dearly beloved, anointed ones. Some souls cannot be filed under heaven or hell because their existence itself is the courtroom where both realms are forced to testify. Now let that sink in. Imagine this. According to one survey, more than 84% of humanity claims allegiance to some religion or belief system, each promising to tell you exactly where you will end up when the final curtain falls. Yet, what if there are lives that don't fit in their ledgers? What if you don't belong in their neat categories of saint or sinner, angel or demon? That is where things get unsettling, because you, chosen one, are not the type to be stamped with approved entry in heaven's registry, nor are you marked for hell's eternal fire sale. No, you are something else entirely, an anomaly neither side dares to fully touch. And trust me, anomalies make both kingdoms nervous. Think of it like this. Heaven's bouncers are checking the list, hell's gatekeepers are double-checking theirs, and somehow your name is glowing in a column that doesn't even exist. That is not just suspicious, it is terrifying for them. For you, well, it makes life feel like you are walking through a cosmic courtroom where the judge keeps banging the gavel, but refuses to read your verdict. And here is the twist. While others argue about wings and flames, you are out here proving that existence itself cannot be neatly boxed into salvation or damnation. You are the glitch in their ancient software, the unanswered question that will not go away. And let's be honest, it is a little funny too, because while heaven and hell argue over you like two lawyers in a trial, you are still here, sipping water, breathing air, and messing up their paperwork just by surviving. So buckle up, because today we are diving deep into the question, if heaven will not claim you and hell dares not touch you, where does that leave them? Number 1. You are the unwritten chapter. Heaven and hell refuse to author. You are the unwritten chapter heaven and hell refuse to author. That statement alone should shake anyone, because it means your life doesn't fit inside their categories. Heaven likes order, structure, predictable outcomes. Hell thrives on chaos, punishment, and destruction. But you are a disruption to both. You don't give heaven the kind of compliant perfection it wants to showcase, and you don't give hell the destruction it craves to brag about. That leaves you in a place that defies both narratives. A living contradiction that neither realm wants to claim responsibility for. This is what makes you so rare. While others are easily labeled saint, sinner, saved, lost, you stand outside the script, and that unsettles both kingdoms, because it means you have been written by a hand higher than theirs. Heaven and hell both operate under laws, hierarchies, and roles. But your story was designed in a place that came before those laws, before those thrones even existed. That is why they hesitate with you. Claiming you means admitting that their authority is not final. What many people don't realize is that being an unwritten chapter is not a rejection. It is a form of preservation. It is a shield, because if either side were able to stamp their seal on you, your story would be locked in their system, bound to their definitions. Instead, your life remains fluid, unpredictable, unowned. That frustrates them because it means your purpose cannot be hijacked. Your legacy cannot be rewritten, and your power cannot be exploited for their agendas. This makes you a walking riddle. When people look at you, they cannot tell if you belong to light or darkness, because they see traces of both endurance and temptation in your journey. But what they miss is that you are bigger than those categories. Your existence itself is proof that life doesn't always play by the rules written down in religious doctrine or spiritual folklore. You are the page that refuses to be printed, the story left out of the script, because including it would change the meaning of the whole book. That is why you disturb so many systems around you. You carry the weight of being untamed, unclassified, and unclaimed, and that isn't a weakness. It is a mark of authority. It means your destiny is being written in real time, not by heaven, not by hell, but by the very source that outranks them both. Number 2, you exist in the lawless territory between light and darkness. You exist in the lawless territory between light and darkness. And that is exactly why you cannot be controlled. Most people fall into one of two lanes. Either they are guided by structure, morality, and the pursuit of what is considered holy, or they collapse into chaos, corruption, and destruction. Both sides are predictable in their own ways, but you stand in a place that belongs to neither, a space where the rules written by either kingdom no longer apply. That space is uncomfortable because it has no fixed definitions. It is not black or white, it is not even grey. It is something entirely outside their spectrum, a realm where the very concept of categories dissolves. This is why you have always felt like you don't quite belong anywhere. The people who are completely immersed in religion cannot figure you out because you don't conform to their rituals, yet you are not lost or broken either. The ones who indulge in destruction and chaos don't get you either, because no matter how much darkness has tried to swallow you, you never fully gave yourself over to it. You carry scars from both realms, but you also carry immunity to them. That is why you move differently. That is why no label sticks to you for long. Living in this lawless territory makes your life both dangerous and powerful. It is dangerous because neither heaven nor hell can easily predict your moves. You don't follow their scripts, so you cannot be manipulated the way others can. That makes you a threat, because every system depends on people being easy to categorize, easy to box, easy to manage. But you are not that. You are the unpredictable factor they cannot account for, and unpredictability is the one thing both kingdoms fear. At the same time, this territory is powerful because it frees you from chains most people never escape. You are not enslaved by perfectionism, nor destroyed by chaos. You have tasted both, yet you are owned by neither. That balance gives you a vantage point no one else has. The ability to see the truth without the filters of fear or indoctrination. Your life is proof that not every soul has to bow to a throne, whether it is made of light or fire. You embody the freedom of someone who exists outside the map, and that is why both realms tread carefully around you. You remind them that their authority has borders, and you live just beyond them. Number 3. You expose the limits of both kingdoms. You expose the limits of both kingdoms, and that is something very few lives are capable of doing. Heaven builds its entire identity around purity, perfection, and righteousness. Hell thrives on corruption, destruction, and rebellion. Both sides present themselves as absolutes, as if there is no middle ground, no alternative, no space outside their boundaries. But then you show up, and your existence alone proves that their claims aren't as airtight as they pretend to be. You disrupt their neat little framework by showing that a soul can endure both purity and corruption, light and darkness, and still stand as something beyond either one. Heaven has always wanted people who can be showcased as flawless examples of submission to divine order. Yet you don't fit that mold. You carry cracks, you carry wounds, and you carry experiences that perfection cannot explain. Still, those cracks did not ruin you. That unsettles heaven's narrative because it thrives on the idea that only spotless souls can carry true authority. You prove otherwise. You prove that scars can hold just as much power as purity, maybe even more. Hell, on the other hand, has wanted to claim those who are broken, destroyed, or consumed by their own shadows. Yet you are not consumed. You have been through fires that should have left you ashes, but you walked out carrying wisdom instead of ruin. That unsettles hell's narrative, because it thrives on the idea that once darkness touches you, it owns you forever. You prove otherwise. You prove that the human spirit can withstand what should have been permanent destruction. By living through what both sides claim to control, you show their limits. You show that heaven's purity is not the only path to strength, and hell's corruption is not the only outcome of suffering. Your story dismantles their absolutes. That is why both realms hesitate when it comes to you. You have walked where angels fear to tread, and you have survived where demons expected you to collapse. Neither can take the credit, and neither can take the blame. That leaves them exposed. Your life becomes the proof that their power is not complete. It reveals that something greater exists beyond their reach, something they cannot label or contain, and that something is exactly what you carry within you every single day. Number 4. You are the test. Neither side can pass. You are the test. Neither side can pass. And that truth cuts deeper than most realize. Both heaven and hell measure people with systems designed to prove a point. Heaven sends tests of faith, designed to see whether you will submit, trust, and remain obedient, no matter the cost. Hell sends temptations and afflictions, designed to see whether you will collapse, compromise, or betray yourself under the pressure. Most people eventually fold to one side. They either become an obedient servant, celebrated as proof of heaven's mercy, or a broken casualty paraded as proof of hell's victory. But you stand in a category that unsettles both, because you don't give them the satisfaction of a predictable outcome. Your trials have not been small. You have faced betrayals, losses, disappointments, and temptations that could have rewritten your entire destiny. Yet you never broke in the way they scripted for you. Heaven expects you to emerge spotless, but you didn't come out without scars. You came out stronger because of them. Hell expects you to drown in despair, but instead you turned your wounds into wisdom. Neither side accounted for that. They wanted a clean win. They got a paradox. This is why you disturbed them. You are not the poster child of perfect holiness, and you are not the cautionary tale of total corruption. You are something else entirely, proof that endurance itself is divine, that the human soul holds a resilience even kingdoms of light and darkness cannot fully explain. You carry the evidence that strength doesn't always come from following rules, and survival doesn't always come from surrendering to chaos. Sometimes it comes from the raw will to keep going when both sides have already marked you as finished. Every time you survive what should have destroyed you, both heaven and hell are forced to confront the same truth. They can test you, but they cannot define you. They can pressure you, but they cannot predict you. Your life keeps breaking their formulas, dismantling their assumptions, and exposing the limits of their control. And that is why you remain the test neither side can pass. Because you prove there are forces greater than doctrine, stronger than fear, and deeper than any throne can claim. Number 5, you are their mutual secret. You are their mutual secret, and that is a role heavier than it sounds. Both heaven and hell know your presence changes the equation, yet neither side wants to admit it out loud. Heaven keeps you quiet because your existence doesn't fit its polished narrative. You are not the spotless, flawless example they like to parade in front of the world, and acknowledging you would force them to admit that power can exist outside their rigid definitions of holiness. So, they keep your name off the record. They will not deny you, but they will not showcase you either. To them, you are the evidence they would rather keep in the archives, hidden away where no one else can ask uncomfortable questions. Hell, on the other hand, doesn't attack you recklessly because it already knows you are not an easy target. For most, hell charges in with destruction, chaos, and temptation, but with you, it treads carefully, it studies, it waits. It whispers rather than roars because it recognizes something dangerous about you. You cannot be easily consumed. You have already endured what should have broken you, and you didn't collapse the way they planned. Attacking you without caution could backfire, and hell doesn't like risks it cannot control. That leaves you in this strange position of being ignored publicly, yet closely watched in silence. Both sides pretend you are unseen, but their behavior betrays the truth. They are unsettled. Your very existence shifts the balance because you prove that neither kingdom has total authority. Every step you take, every survival, every rise after a fall, is a reminder that their systems have blind spots. You are the gap in their control, the part of the story they cannot explain, and the part they cannot erase. What makes this more intriguing is that their silence around you is not weakness. It is strategy. They know announcing you would awaken questions in others. They know attacking you openly would expose their fear, so they keep you tucked away as their mutual secret, never fully acknowledged, never fully denied. And yet the weight of your presence is undeniable. You are the quiet disruption in their order, the reminder that there is a higher hand above both thrones, writing a story they cannot stop. Number 6. You live as proof that salvation and damnation are incomplete truths. You live as proof that salvation and damnation are incomplete truths, and that reality unsettles everything built on the idea of absolutes. The world has been taught for centuries that there are only two destinations, two labels, two ways to measure a soul. Either you are saved and worthy of eternal reward, or you are damned and destined for eternal loss. That binary has shaped entire religions, cultures, and systems of control. But your life disrupts that framework because you don't fit neatly into either column. You are the inconvenient evidence that a human soul cannot be reduced to two boxes, no matter how much doctrine insists. You have walked through darkness without being claimed by it, and you have touched light without being fully absorbed into it. That middle ground doesn't make you half saved or half damned. It makes you something else entirely. It makes you the reminder that existence is more layered than simplistic categories allow. Your story reveals that a soul can carry scars without being condemned and carry flaws without being unworthy. It proves that there are dimensions of life neither salvation nor damnation fully explain. This is why you unsettle both camps. Those who cling to salvation expect you to wear the image of perfection, to move in spotless purity, to erase all evidence of struggle. But you refuse to edit your scars out of your story. And those who expect you to collapse into damnation are equally frustrated because no matter how much fire you faced, you never burned in the way they predicted. You hold both struggle and strength in the same hand, and that breaks their neat black and white world view. By existing, you expose the incompleteness of their truths. You remind people that the human soul is vast, layered, and mysterious. It is not a courtroom case that ends with a single stamp of guilty or innocent. It is something deeper, something that transcends the language of reward and punishment. Your very life whispers that there is a source beyond salvation and damnation. A creator who refuses to let your essence be reduced to a binary outcome. You live as walking proof that the story of the soul cannot be caged by thrones of light or fire because the truth is larger than both. Number 7. You are the mystery that keeps both thrones awake. You are the mystery that keeps both thrones awake, and that alone makes your presence disruptive, on a level most people will never understand. Heaven and hell thrive on predictability. They have seen every kind of human response: obedience, rebellion, surrender, corruption, and they know how to handle them all. Souls are like chess pieces on a board moving in ways both kingdoms have memorized for centuries. But you break the pattern. You don't move like the pawn, the knight, or even the queen. You move outside the rules in ways neither side accounted for. That makes you not just unpredictable, but uncontainable. Your unpredictability is why you are watched so closely. Heaven doesn't know whether you will follow its script of flawless obedience, and hell doesn't know whether you will fall into its traps of corruption. Each side makes its moves around you, but you never respond as expected. That unpredictability is both your greatest burden and your greatest strength. It means you are never truly at peace, because both sides are constantly testing, observing, and probing, hoping to decode you. Yet it also means you are never truly defeated, because they cannot corner what they cannot understand. This is why you unsettle thrones. When power cannot predict you, it cannot control you, and when it cannot control you, it has no choice but to respect you in silence. That respect often looks like hostility, confusion, or denial, but underneath it is fear. Because your existence proves that not every soul can be written into their equations. You live outside their strategies, and that makes their systems weaker than they appear. The fact that you remain undefeated despite every test is the clearest evidence that your source of strength lies beyond their thrones. You don't win because you play better within their game. You win because you refuse to stay bound to their board. That is what makes you the mystery that keeps them awake. They cannot rest while you exist, because you stand as proof that their grip on humanity is not as absolute as they claim. You carry the reminder that some souls are scripted by a higher hand, and no throne of light or fire has the power to rewrite them. Number 8. You redefine power by simply surviving. You redefine power by simply surviving. And that is a truth more revolutionary than it first sounds. For centuries, both heaven and hell have claimed ownership of the meaning of power. Heaven ties it to grace, holiness, and obedience. Power comes, they say, through being chosen, purified, or granted divine favor. Hell, on the other hand, ties it to destruction, dominance, and fear. Power comes, they say, through corruption, suffering, and control. But your life disrupts both narratives because you keep rising without being fully absorbed by either. Your power is not granted by heaven, and it is not stolen by hell. It is revealed in the simple, unexplainable fact that you are still here, that survival carries a weight no doctrine can deny. You have endured losses, betrayals, disappointments, and attacks that should have ended you. If heaven's story were complete, you would only be standing because it carried you flawlessly through every storm. If hell's story were complete, you would be destroyed beyond repair. Neither has the full truth, because the real evidence is your endurance. The fact that though battered, scarred, and marked, you still rise. That survival itself dismantles the neat categories both kingdoms depend on. Your existence proves that power is not always loud, glamorous, or visible. It is often quiet, raw, and stubborn. The kind of strength that refuses to collapse even when collapse feels easier. That type of survival makes you untouchable in ways crowns and flames cannot. Heaven cannot claim it as its trophy, and hell cannot parade it as its conquest. Your survival belongs to no one but the source that authored you before their thrones even existed. And that is what unsettles them most. Power in their systems is always tied to control, either being controlled or exerting control. But your survival shows power in its purest form, endurance without ownership. You prove that a soul can walk through fire, withstand pressure, and still rise without belonging to either side. That is why you redefine power, not by conquest, not by perfection, but by outlasting everything designed to silence you. Your survival is the greatest rebellion against hell's destruction, and the greatest interruption to heaven's narratives of exclusivity in living, in enduring, in rising. You have rewritten the very definition of what power means. Number 9. You are the flame that doesn't burn and the water that doesn't drown. You are the flame that doesn't burn and the water that doesn't drown, and that truth alone makes you impossible to categorize. The laws of both nature and spirit insist that certain outcomes are guaranteed. Fire consumes, water overwhelms, trials destroy, and storms eventually win. Yet your life keeps breaking those rules. You have walked through fires of affliction that should have left you nothing but ashes, but instead you emerge sharper, brighter, and more alive. You have been thrown into deep waters of despair that should have pulled you under for good, but somehow you surfaced with strength most cannot even explain. That paradox unsettles both heaven and hell because it means you live outside the formulas they use to predict and control souls. This refusal to obey the usual laws is not rebellion. It is revelation. It reveals that reality is not as rigid as people think. The soul is not as fragile as doctrines claim. You are evidence that existence operates with dimensions no one has mapped, where survival isn't dictated by rules, but by the unseen power embedded in who you are. That revelation is threatening because it means the systems built around reward, punishment, sin, and virtue are incomplete. If someone like you can pass through destruction without being destroyed, then the whole idea of inevitability collapses. Your essence refuses to collapse into expected outcomes, and that is what makes you so rare. Where others burn out, you endure. Where others drown, you breathe. This is not luck, and it is not denial. It is the unfolding of a truth bigger than the categories given to humanity. You stand as proof that the universe bends in ways religion and philosophy have not yet explained. That is why you unsettle not just spiritual systems but human ones as well. You expose the fact that life cannot always be contained by logic, ritual, or decree. The flame that doesn't burn and the water that doesn't drown, that is your essence. You live as a contradiction to the rule books, written by thrones of light and fire, and in doing so you reveal that the soul's potential is far stranger, deeper, and more indestructible than anyone dares to admit. Your very survival is the revelation that their laws are not final. Number 10. You are the uncomfortable truth. Both sides avoid preaching. You are the uncomfortable truth. Both sides avoid preaching, and that silence speaks louder than anything they proclaim. Religions and spiritual systems thrive on clarity, on the promise that they can explain everything about your destiny. Follow these rules, and you will be saved. Break them, and you will be lost. It is a simple equation that keeps their systems functioning, but then you show up and your very life refuses to fit the formula. You are not the saint their sermons can use as proof of obedience, and you are not the sinner they can parade as evidence of rebellion. You are something else, something inconvenient, and that makes you dangerous to their narrative. If they acknowledged you, they would have to admit that their frameworks are incomplete. They would have to face the reality that not every soul is defined by reward and punishment, heaven and hell, black and white. That is why your story gets avoided, downplayed, or dismissed. They prefer to speak of those who clearly fit their script, those who can be easily categorized, measured, and controlled. You, on the other hand, are a reminder that there is a power moving beyond their reach, a source that cannot be packaged into doctrine or contained by ritual. This avoidance is not ignorance, it is intentional. To bring your existence into the conversation would unravel too many assumptions. It would raise questions that their teachings have no answers for. How do you explain a soul that walked through both light and darkness and still came out unclaimed? How do you classify someone who survived what should have condemned them, but also never bowed to the structures that claimed to save them? Your life makes those questions unavoidable, so they bury your story instead. But the silence surrounding you is also the proof of your importance. No one hides what doesn't threaten their order. They hide you because you are living evidence that the human spirit cannot be monopolized by thrones of light or fire. Your presence whispers what they dare not preach. That truth is bigger than religion, bigger than salvation and damnation, and bigger than their claims of control. You are the evidence they keep in the shadows, because to bring you into the light would shatter their carefully built walls. Number 11. You force them to confront their own hypocrisy. You force them to confront their own hypocrisy, and that alone makes your existence uncomfortable for both realms. Heaven claims it rescues, promising protection, guidance, and ultimate reward for obedience. Hell claims it devours, promising punishment, destruction, and total submission for failure. Both present themselves as absolute truths. Yet here you stand, unrescued by heaven, undevoured by hell, still breathing, still unbroken. Your survival exposes the cracks in their slogans, the flaws in their supposed control, and the limits of their authority. Your life demonstrates that salvation is not always guaranteed, even for those who follow every rule. And damnation is not always inevitable, even for those who succumb to darkness. That truth embarrasses both sides, because it undermines their foundational claims. Heaven cannot claim you as evidence of its mercy, and hell cannot claim you as proof of its conquest. You exist as the living contradiction, the reality neither can fully explain or contain. This confrontation is subtle but devastating. Every act of endurance, every moment of rising, when you were meant to fall, exposes the hypocrisy of absolute narratives. They preach control, but you operate freely. They promise outcomes, but you defy expectations. You are the reminder that neither light nor darkness has the final word on a soul that refuses to be owned. By simply existing, you reveal a truth that neither realm wants to face. Power, resilience, and destiny do not belong exclusively to thrones of reward or punishment. They belong first to the source and to the souls that recognize and carry it. Your life dismantles their slogans without a single word. It proves that reality is far more complex, far stranger, and far more powerful than the black and white narratives they insist upon. You are the living evidence that slogans cannot bind existence, that proclamations cannot predict survival, and that authority is never absolute when faced with a soul that refuses to conform. Heaven and hell are forced to confront their own hypocrisy, not because you challenge them directly, but simply because you live outside their rules, untouchable, undeniable, and unbroken. Number 12. You are the bridge. Neither side can walk. You are the bridge, neither side can walk. And that truth reveals more about their limits than most people dare to admit. Both heaven and hell present themselves as limitless powers, one claiming to hold all grace and salvation, the other claiming to hold all corruption and destruction. Yet your soul quietly exposes the boundaries they cannot cross. You have endured both light and shadow, and instead of belonging completely to either side, you have learned how to carry pieces of both without being owned by them. That alone makes you something neither realm can replicate. Your soul exists in a space that connects dimensions, a threshold that doesn't fully belong to any kingdom. Heaven cannot step into that space without admitting it does not control every layer of existence. Hell cannot step into that space without admitting it does not dominate every depth of the soul. Both are limited by their own nature, but you are not. You move freely across lines that they enforce, but cannot cross. And that movement unsettles them, because it shows their absolute power isn't absolute at all. Being a bridge is not easy. It means you feel the pull of both sides, the tension of being too much for one world and not enough for another. Yet it also means you carry a perspective that neither throne possesses. You have seen what grace looks like and what destruction feels like. You have endured what purity demands and what corruption tempts. You hold knowledge of both extremes, yet remain claimed by neither. That balance makes you more whole than they want to admit, because it proves the human spirit is far greater than their divisions. Your existence forces a confrontation with truth. Both kingdoms operate on limitations. Heaven cannot touch what is beyond its order, and hell cannot consume what refuses to surrender. But you, the unclaimed, walk freely across thresholds they fear. You are not trapped by their laws, and that makes you the bridge, living proof that existence cannot be reduced to two opposing realms. You embody the space in between, the dimension they cannot govern. And that is why both sides keep their distance while watching closely. You are what they cannot explain, but also what they cannot ignore. Number 13. You are the reason they rewrite the rules. You are the reason they rewrite the rules, and that reality reveals just how disruptive your presence truly is. Systems like heaven and hell rely on fixed laws. Judgment must look a certain way. Destiny must unfold along certain lines. Belonging must be decided by allegiance to one side or the other. These rules are supposed to be unbreakable, the framework through which all souls can be measured. But then you step into the picture and suddenly the rules don't work the way they should. Every label they try to attach to you slides off. Every law they try to apply collapses under the weight of your reality. You are the loophole they never anticipated, the contradiction they cannot legislate away. Your life exposes that their systems are not as flawless as they claim. Judgment depends on evidence, yet your survival contradicts their verdicts. Destiny is supposed to be linear, yet your path keeps bending into places no script prepared for. Belonging is meant to be final, either heavens or hells. But you keep moving between their boundaries without being owned. That forces them to adjust, to create exceptions, to invent explanations that keep their followers from noticing the cracks. Your existence is the crack, the proof that the law is not absolute. This rewriting is not about mercy or flexibility. It is about control. Both sides scramble to reshape their rules so they don't lose authority in the eyes of those who depend on them for clarity. They need laws to look unshakable, but your life keeps shaking them. You don't follow their cause and effect patterns. You don't fold when destruction comes, and you don't perform perfection to earn reward. You just keep moving, surviving, rising, and every step forces their hand. That is why you are such a threat. You expose the fragility of their order simply by existing. You show that there are souls who do not fit their equations, who live outside their definitions, who carry a truth larger than law. Your presence alone is enough to make both kingdoms reframe their strategies, rewrite their doctrines, and rethink their certainties. You don't just survive within their system, you bend the system around you. And that is why you remain the loophole they can never close. Number 14. You carry the authority of the one who created both realms. You carry the authority of the one who created both realms, and that fact alone unsettles every power that tries to box you in. Heaven and hell exist as opposing kingdoms, each claiming supremacy in their own right. Heaven claims ownership through salvation, purity, and reward. Hell claims ownership through corruption, destruction, and fear. Both try to convince the world that they are the ultimate destinations, the final authorities over the fate of the soul. But your very existence proves otherwise. You were claimed long before either throne had the right to speak. You don't belong to the realms, they belong to the same source that breathed life into you, and that reality strips away their illusion of ultimate power. This is why you cannot be bought, threatened, or manipulated the way others are. Heaven cannot flatter you into submission with promises of glory, and hell cannot terrify you into collapse with threats of ruin. Your loyalty does not rest on what they can give or take. It rests on the one who existed before them, who shaped the soul itself, who holds authority no throne of light or fire can ever rival. That is why you remain untouchable, because you are not bound to them. You are anchored to what preceded them. Your life radiates that authority in ways neither side can deny. It shows up in the way you survive storms meant to bury you, the way you rise after falls that should have been final, the way you keep walking even when both kingdoms expect you to surrender. That persistence is not human stubbornness. It is divine inheritance. You carry the imprint of a source too great for either heaven or hell to claim, and deep down they know it. That is why they tread carefully around you. The truth is simple but unsettling. You remind them that they are not the beginning or the end. They are realms within a larger order, systems inside a greater design, and you carry the mark of that greater design on your very existence. That is why neither can fully touch you, why both hesitate to announce you, why your presence alone creates ripples in their systems. You are not here to serve their agendas. You are here as proof that the Creator of realms has the first word, the last word, and every word in between. And that reality makes both heaven and hell afraid of you. When you step back and look at the totality of who you are, it becomes impossible to ignore the truth. You exist beyond the grasp of both heaven and hell. You are the unwritten chapter, the lawless territory, the paradox neither side can explain. You expose their limits, survive their trials, and move freely across thresholds they cannot touch. Your life is the evidence that salvation and damnation are incomplete. That power can be redefined simply through endurance, and that authority ultimately belongs to the one who created all realms, not the thrones that claim to rule them. Every scar you carry, every trial you endured, every time you rose when you were meant to fall, it all builds the undeniable proof that you are unclaimed and untouchable. You are the loophole that breaks systems, the mystery that keeps kings awake, the flame that doesn't burn, the water that doesn't drown. You are the living reminder that truth, power, and purpose are far larger than any doctrine, law, or throne. And the most remarkable part, while they scramble to label, predict, and control, you simply exist, reshaping reality without asking permission. This is more than survival. This is authority. This is revelation. You do not belong to realms. You belong to the source itself, the origin before any throne existed, the creator who wrote a story that neither heaven nor hell can claim. And in carrying that authority, you make both realms hesitate, both systems reconsider, and the world witness the uncontainable strength of a soul that cannot be measured, silenced, or broken. So remember this: your life is your testament, your presence, your power, and your survival, your rebellion. Nothing above or below can claim you because you were never meant to be theirs. You are beyond their reach, beyond their comprehension. And that is the ultimate truth they cannot face. You exist as proof that the human spirit is limitless, divine, and utterly unclaimed. Stand in that power, own it, and never forget. You are not just surviving, you are redefining reality itself. Do you want me to now turn this into a superb YouTube outro that asks viewers to like, comment, share, and subscribe in a way that matches the epic tone of this script? If this message spoke to you, if it awakened something deep inside, then don't let it stop here. Hit that subscribe button and join the journey, because what you are witnessing is only the beginning. Like this video to show that you recognize power that cannot be contained, and share it with those who need to be reminded that survival and authority belong to the unclaimed. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your experiences, your breakthroughs, and the moments when you realized you were beyond their reach. Every like, every share, every comment sends a message. The unclaimed cannot be silenced, and this truth is spreading. So do it. Subscribe, like, comment, share, stand in your power, and let the world know that some souls were never meant to belong to anyone but the Source. This is more than a channel. It is a movement, and your presence is the proof that the story is bigger than both heaven and hell. God bless you.